So I think the big dimensions of the fight in 2023 are now pretty clear. The Russian occupation of somewhere around 50% of Ukraine has now had time to be well prepared from a defensive perspective, and it's going to present a much harder fight for Ukraine than the Ukrainian offensive encountered last summer and into the autumn. And from a Ukrainian perspective, they've had time, with a lot of help from NATO, to build quite a large offensive force of, say, around 50,000 people, with 9 brigades worth of NATO equipment and 3 brigades worth of Russian equipment. So we know now that that force is going to be pretty competent, but it's going to be difficult to batter its way through these quite well-structured Russian defenses. And even if it succeeds in doing that, it will never be big enough to throw Russia out of Ukraine in 2023.
Dmitry Babich, what is the assessment of the conflict from the Russian point of view?
Well, let me remind you that everyone was mistaken on Ukraine. I mean, the West predicted that the Ukrainian army would collapse in a few weeks, maybe days, when the Russian attack started in February last year. That didn't happen. The West predicted that there would be a huge guerrilla fight in the rear of the Russian army. It didn't happen. Also, the West predicted that Russia would crumble under the sanctions, the unprecedented sanctions that were imposed. That also didn't happen. So if Russia was mistaken in some of its predictions, and I think the main expectation was that Ukraine would have a strong pro-Russian movement inside the country that would facilitate the actions of the Russian troops. They would not be so bloody and so heavy of consequences for both Ukraine and Russia. Everyone was in error. In the same way here, I think that Sir Richard is right that Russian defense will withstand the current onslaught of the Ukrainian troops. I think the idea, which was very popular in the West, that somehow Zelensky's troops would be able to reach up to Crimea and maybe even to take Crimea, that was a very adventurous approach. I think the solution is, of course, some kind of peace negotiation, some kind of a compromise. But unfortunately, I think the main force that doesn't want a compromise, that is, the Western community of nations, I'm sorry, and Zelensky as the representative of Western influence in Ukraine.